Hi, this is Kay Cooney, and today I am going to do something that I find particularly difficult, and that's sitting and talking about myself in a manner that's not tongue-in-cheek and not sort of sarcastic, but real and honest. So this is part of our growth and development and part of a leadership challenge that I chose to be a part of as part of making myself a better version of myself to continue to grow. One thing that I've always done in my life has been grow. And this is one of many challenges that we'll have so that we can be a better version of ourselves. So this is going to have a slightly different tone than what you're used to hearing from me. And this is going to be a little bit more tough. I'm not really excited about doing this, but I also feel like, well, I'll explain why. So a couple of weeks ago when I went out to conference, there was a speaker, Mel Robbins, who got up on the stage, and she had on a rainbow sequin skirt, and she just threw it all out there on the stage of herself, her vulnerabilities, her weaknesses. And I felt in many ways she was telling my story, and who am I not to do the same? Right? Yes, she's a millionaire, and one day wouldn't we all like to be one with her? But if somebody like that's that famous and is seen all over the world as one of the most booked speakers in the U.S. can get up there in front of, 30,000 people and put it out there, I should be able to do that too. So that's what I'm going to try and do today for you and with you. So for those of you who only have come to know me fairly recently, I grew up in Boston. I was one of 7 kids. I have always had a dog around me, usually way more than one. But ever since I was a kid, I was the dog whisperer in the house. Always had a passion for books and reading, was a really big geek, and loved school. And I went to Northeastern University for my sociology anthropology degree. I went to New England Baptist School of Nursing for my nursing certificate, then went back and got my master's in my Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and I started my PhD, and I realized that I was way too high-strung to do PhD work. It required an awful lot of reading and sitting still, and that was not me. So I went for the real world experience. I have been in hospice now for 20 plus years in a management and leadership capacity. It is a job that I have very much loved and enjoyed, but it's also a job that comes with it a lot of responsibility, a lot of stress, and as you age and you start to accumulate your own residual losses, it gets tough. And I got burnt out. I got burnt out pretty badly, and recognized that a little bit later than perhaps I should have, but made the correction. So I'll give you just a little bit to catch you sort of up fairly recently. So about 4 years ago now, going on 5, my dad passed pretty quickly and in many ways unexpectedly for us. And we had always thought my mom would go first because she had Alzheimer's dementia, she had battled cancer. I never expected that I'd lose him first, and that was a tough blow. My dad was one of the people on this planet that always loved me unconditionally, always made me feel amazing about myself. I can remember when I was applying to West Point, him helping me down at the ball field, timing me as I was running like a crazy person, and being at my first parade at West Point and having him sitting in the bleachers at about 6 o'clock in the morning when the parade didn't start till 9 because he wanted the best seat in the house. So I was a pretty lucky person to have a dad like that, that I adored so much, that taught me so much. So when he passed, that was really hard. And it was funny because I thought because I'd been in hospice for so long, I could handle that stuff. But that was a real blow to me. We buried him, and then about a week later, my youngest daughter, who has cystic fibrosis, was diagnosed with an antibiotic-resistant organism. And that started 4 long years that continue on IV therapy every day, some really heavy-duty medical decisions. There were days where when her symptoms flared up, she would be on as many as 25 IV antibiotics a day, her chest PT, her breathing treatments, all of that going on, and still trying to work a full-time job and meet my other familial obligations. And I wasn't always that good at it. I always so I can't blame my employers. I've held myself to a standard and a passion, because my work to me was not just a job and a paycheck. It was always a calling to serve people at end of life. And after losing my dad, it started to get really hard to do. Then when I was dealing with how ill my daughter was and looking at mortality from that perspective, that was really did a job. It was not an easy time, to say the least. So we've battled, and she's had some good runs with it, and we have the National Institute of Health in Bethesda that works with us, and we've been blessed with some really good care providers over time. And I have a wonderful story that I'll share with you in the end, but she's here with us, and we are making huge progress. And there are opportunities that came up for her health that we never could have dreamed of 4 years ago, when the prognosis for her was so grim. I also have another daughter who at the same time was struggling with the whole series of issues on her own. So there was the guilt of a mom of being pulled so strongly in one direction, trying to juggle the other. I know there's other mothers out there that feel like a teaspoon of peanut butter trying to feed an entire class and spread yourself as thin as you possibly can, and it's not easy. And now 3-4 years go by, and my mom is not in a great space. And her dementia has progressed. There's some heart problems, there's other things going on. And she goes on to hospice. I believe she signed up to hospice 2 days after, or somewhere like within that week, that we put both of our houses on the market. So I had a home that was a rental property, and I had the home that we lived in. I had been struggling because I had ruptured my Achilles tendon and needed a tendon graft, an ankle reconstruction, a bone graft, and went through a pretty miserable about 18-month period where I was non-weight bearing, constantly needing to use crutches or the scooter. I had an awful lot of pain. The pain was constant and continuous during that period of time, and pain wears you down. So there was the pain, there was the kids, there was the loss of dad, now there was mom's failing health, and the house that I raised the kids in, we just put on the market, and the house that I was living in, we were selling because we really weren't happy in that neighborhood at all. And the stairs were so bad, and my ankle was so bad at the time, I couldn't do the stairs. And at 51 years old, I wasn't gonna go up and down over the stairs on my bum like a toddler. So it was time to get to one floor living. I had pretty much accepted the pain and the limitation. So as all of this is going on, so the houses are both on the market, right? So if you can imagine getting 2 homes on the market, my mom is on hospice. My dog, who I'd had for 14 years, who was really one of the funniest dogs on the planet, 180-pound Newfoundland Beau, who was just like the bomb, we had to put him down. So that just sort of added to the emotional wreckage that was going on. And at the time, I had a job, and I was with a company where it was such a cultural misfit that it was painful. They didn't see the value in me. I wasn't feeling very welcome there at all. I was working really hard to build a team. There were things in place that made that really difficult or impossible to do. So you sort of just add all that to the chronic pain and the loss and everything going on. And it was a lousy time, to say the least. So as it got closer to my mom declining, everything was just kind of snowballing. And if I had to look back at that, that 3-month period of my life, I don't think I'd ever want to do it again. I don't think I had ever been more frustrated, more depressed, unsatisfied with my job. I felt really torn between my work obligations and making sure I was there for my kids. Then, of course, there's a husband in there, and he's getting no attention whatsoever. And we're packing stuff up for these houses. One sold 2 days within the time it went in the market. One was about like 4 weeks or so. And we had bought another house. So at one point, I owned 3 houses during this poop show. So, and somewhere along the line, I had learned everything I had in terms of a work ethic from my dad. And my dad worked up until the day he had his stroke and died. And that had resonated with me now for, the past, as all this is going on. It just didn't make sense to me that this man who worked so hard his whole life, he never retired. He worked himself to the bone, and I know that that was his choice, but that was about a generation of people that made every sacrifice for their wife and children, but perhaps at his own health. And I knew that. And I knew that being in hospice, I didn't have any life-work balance, and I needed to do a better job of what I was doing. So I quit my job. I had no plan. I just knew that I was about to hit the point where I was going to crumble. My mom was gone. My dad was gone. I'm now in a new house. The good news is, love my house. If you can see anything in the background and hear the little chimes and hear the water, it is one of the greatest decisions I've ever made. But at that point in time, boy, oh boy, whether it's good change or bad change, change causes all its own sort of stressors to and with you. So I had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew that I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. And I was really afraid that I was going to have a breakdown. And I can remember my primary care doctor explaining to me that people like me don't have breakdowns. And I was very disappointed because I kind of wanted to go someplace where they cooked for you and you had, nice linens and you didn't have to do the dishes or think or do anything. But that was not to be the case for me. And, but what I did realize was that I was done with working an 80, 90, 100-hour work week and being on call 7 days a week and disappointing everybody around me and disappointing myself and having no life-work balance and never getting to enjoy anything and spending all this time in the car commuting. And so I knew I had to make some sort of changes. So I'd also like to share with you another really major change that I had to make in my life in order to get over the bridge and be where I am right now. So I had a wonderful niece who I credit with teaching us about the essential oils, and I made the decision to make a Christmas gift to both of my daughters and myself with the oils. And immediately we started to see benefits from the stress, from some symptoms that my daughter was having. I was very impressed as an advanced practice nurse with how well these worked. But I still had one more thing I had to overcome in order to get to the other side of the stage. And what had happened was when my dad passed, I started drinking a lot more than I was comfortable with and consuming an impressive amount of alcohol in the evenings. And then after my mom died, it got worse. I just didn't even know what to do with myself. And so what I would do is very wonderfully and ladylike, I would wait until 5 p.m. and I would begin consuming. And then I woke up one day and I realized that I'd crossed the line of responsible drinking to having a real problem. And so I made a decision about 160 days ago to stop consuming alcohol and lead a sober and a cleaner life. And that was a really good decision for me. It's filled me with a lot of joy, and it's something that I'm really proud of. I haven't told people much about it because I never know how people are going to react But there's pride for me in knowing that I'm a much better version of myself, and I'm not self-medicating anymore. And there were a couple of reasons why I did that. One, I was angry at myself because I'd gone that path. I knew better. Two, I felt like I was letting everyone down around me. Three, I knew I would never come to a period of peace about the loss of my mom and dad, and my daughter's health, drunk. I knew that they were big issues that required head-on work, and an active participant and somebody who was willing to do the work in order to get to the other side. So that's what I did. I stuck my face in the beehive and did what I had to do. What I also did at the time was realize that if I was going to be successful in launching a business for myself, that I was going to have to make some changes to me, and that was a big one. I wanted to be more predictable, more responsible, have the time, have the energy, and I realized that I was most happy in life when I was self-employed and in directing myself. I'm very easily motivated, and I hold myself accountable. I'm my own worst judge and jury. So it made sense to me to do business for myself. So I made the decision to commit to growing a business with Young Living, with all of that sort of as the background. So the amazing part of what made me make the decision to not take all of these different hospice jobs that I was then offered, and I was smart enough to keep saying no, because the hard thing is when you've been working in the industry for a while and you're educated, the money is very addicting. I enjoyed a very, very generous compensation. I paid the ultimate price for it, but I was paid well. But it wasn't enough. I wasn't really happy. I was miserable, and it was stressful. And so I knew enough to say no to the different job offers that came in. So while this is going on, though, of course, I'm using the oils, and I start applying them to my ankle that at this point was so severe that we had, thought it was a good idea to leave our house because I couldn't do the stairs. Sorry, they were just adjusting for the sun. And I realized that after about 4 or 5 weeks, I no longer had the ankle pain. Just give me 1 second. I'm just gonna move this. Being outdoors is beautiful. There we are. But I can't control the sun. Can't control much of anything, right? Control's an illusion, people. Figure that one out. Anyhow, so I made the decision that I was going to do this. And with my ankle now feeling great, being in a house that was one level and I didn't have to do stairs anymore, I was pretty excited to see that I had used the oils and in such a way that I had gotten rid of the pain, the limp, and I was actually healing. So that impressed me an awful lot. I was also giving these oils to my daughter who was struggling with her lung and her organism issues. And lo and behold, in January, we got her first culture back. So when you have respiratory bacteria with cystic fibrosis, you live by the cultures. So if the culture load was really high that month, we would bombard her with more IV antibiotics. If it was okay, then we'd just do her daily antibiotics or IVs. In January, her first culture came back negative. And I'm sure you can imagine that I had a very hard time believing that and didn't want to tell that story out loud. Same thing happened in February, March, April, May, and June. When she grew this organism, what it did was it destroyed about 60% of her lung capacity, and it leaves it sort of dead and dry, which then opens it up to all sorts of organisms. So it wasn't just the one organism we were dealing with. It was a whole host of organisms and some pretty serious fellers, Pseudomonas, Cepacia, some things that I would really call badass bacteria. Her culture's not, so her last culture was 2 weeks ago, and it too was completely negative. I don't really know what to say about that other than the oils are incredibly potent from both a pharmaceutical as well as an energetic perspective. Whatever combo that we've used, and I think honestly the combo looks a little bit different for everybody, but trusting our instincts and doing a whole heck of a lot of research, something pretty amazing happened. And when you see that, it's really hard not to get very excited about a product and go all in. And so that was sort of my why, my what's motivating me. But I'm not here to sell. I'm here to be honest right now and just sort of lay things out and introduce myself so that people do know me and do get me. It's funny, the other night I was calling bingo and I had on a life-size flamingo costume, and I heard one of the ladies underneath her breath go, "What an idiot," referring to me. And I suppose on the outside, if you don't know me, you might think I am an idiot. I'm not. I'm pretty humble, actually, at the end of the day, and pretty caring. I am an idiot, but I'm not sure I am in the same way she meant it as. So let me just talk a little bit about the solution. So I now have a job that I can do wherever we want to go. So we love our bus. We love our motor coach. So I've been able to enjoy the summer, be at different campgrounds, do what I want to do. We're talking about traveling down the coast for the fall and for the winter time, and be able to take the business show on the road. I love what I'm doing. I love the culture. I got really, really lucky to find a team that I fit within the culture and that they very much love all over me and make me feel good about myself, and I hope I do the same for them. It's a really amazing group of women, and I adore them. I really, truly do. And they've made a huge impact in my life and in my recovery, and help give me strength every day in ways that they probably don't know. And as toward what am I going to be? So my whole life, I've always said, I still haven't decided what I'm going to be when I grow up. And I don't know if any of you have ever said that or been honest enough to say that, because when you say that, it means that you're not there yet. So I think it's okay not to be there yet. And I haven't been there yet for most of my life. But I know what I'm going to be when I grow up now. I am really proud of what I'm doing. I'm proud of the products that I'm working with. I get to be a nurse, but in a really different capacity. It's not my nursing brain that I get to use now. It's my caring and my nurturing brain. I love teaching and educating. And what I'm going to be when I grow up is a Royal Crown Diamond in Young Living's organization. I have committed to myself internally and externally that this is my last job because it fits me and it suits me so well. It's a company that treats their people so amazingly well that the week that we were at convention, like I Mad Ugly Girl cried a couple of times, like 3 or 4, and it wasn't. It was because of the investment in me as a person, as a human. And part of this whole exercise and putting it out there about who you are and being real is the kind of company it is, because they understand that when they can get you to be the best version of yourself, you will thrive, and you will grow, and you will be happy, and you'll do all the things that you wanted to be when you grew up. So here it is, July 2018. And I'm a whole lot further than I was almost a year ago. Still miss my dad terribly. Still need to reconcile a whole bunch of stuff with my mom. But I've got a lot of love and support around me. I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty proud of myself. I like the direction that I'm going in. And I like what I am now that I'm grown up. So that's my story. Thanks for listening.